Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Welcome, everybody. As many of you know, Nancy and I travel the country full-time documenting parks on our Love Your Parks tour, our parks and communities, and also sharing the stories of the communities. And one of our good friends, Glenn Burrows, the owner of Norfolk Tours in England, sent us on a story mission as part of our travels, and it is about the English connection back to England, from America to England. And last year, 2020, Nancy and I had the amazing opportunity to stay at the Hummingbird Inn in Maryland and also at the Lafayette Inn in Easton, Pennsylvania, both in Easton, right? And Glenn goes, well, there's your connection because Easton's around the corner from me. So that is what we're talking about, 3 Eastons, one in Norfolk, England, one in Maryland, and one in Pennsylvania. So we're very excited. We're going to do a nice feature on this in the upcoming spring issue of Parks and Travel magazine. Check it all out at nationalparktraveling.com. Sign up for our newsletter. But let's bring Glenn on first since he's calling in from across the pond. And everyone, check out Glenn's website, norfolk-tours.co.uk. Glenn, how are you?
Oh, I'm excellent today, thank you, and really excited about this tying the Eastons together.
I love this
Cool.
because we've been on the show talking. We've done like Helen Hunt. We've done all these different people, right?
Yeah.
Authors,
Yes.
and we've done Chesapeake Bay. That was something, but kind of touches back where we are because I believe when we were in Maryland, we were in Chesapeake country, and I'm like, oh, we got to stop the car everywhere. But we have to just go back, honestly. But I think this is the first time we've had 3 of the same city names, right? Or town names, or, their cities, villages. Yeah. So this is the first time. So it's very exciting. You've got an article up right now on nationalparktraveling.com. Just type in Easton. You'll find the Lafayette Inn, and you'll find Glenn's article on Easton-England and also the Lafayette Inn. And that is in Easton, Pennsylvania. And so we have Laura Giuliello joining us. Her and her husband, Paolo, own and operate the Lafayette in Easton. Go to LafayetteInn.com. Welcome back, Laura. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine, and I'm very glad to be here and love my town of Easton, and I'm going to love hearing about other towns of Easton.
I know. This is so cool. I wonder if there's more. There's got to be more somewhere. I would even find out who started the Easton. Oh, see, I knew it. We'll have more to do then. And I want to bring Eric Levinson on. He is the innkeeper and owner of the Hummingbird Inn in Easton, Maryland. And you can go to his website, hummingbirdinneaston.com. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Nice to see you. Nice to hear from you again.
I know. Listen, we had so much fun. So your inn is
we did have fun there.
We did a radio show from your turret. I remember.
Yes.
I wanted to play Rapunzel, but now my hair's cut off. I know. We did. And then we went down and played Wine Time on the patio, and that was it for the rest of the day.
That was
cool. but you have a wonderful. Yours is Queen Anne. So thinking British, right? Queen Anne. That's your Queen Anne Victorian B&B, and the rooms: St. Michael's, Cambridge, Easton, Oxford, Tillman, and Crisfield, right? Those are the room names?
Correct. Yep. Mm-hmm.
See?
All local Eastern Shore towns.
You said Oxford, Lisa.
I know, just for Glenn. I'm starting right there. But listen, so you got the connections to England with the rooms and the surrounding towns, and then the Lafayette that to me sounds more like Louisiana, Laura. What's going on? What happened to the English name?
Well, we really are named after Lafayette College, which is 2 blocks away, and the college is named after the Marquis, who had just come through on a tour around the time that the college was established in 1823.
Oh. The Marquis.
So, that's interesting. So, Glenn, Oxford and Cambridge, does that tie back to a little bit of college or university history in England?
There's a little bit of rivalry between the 2 college cities. It always takes part in the boat race, which we all know about. We all see the Oxford and Cambridge boat race, but Oxford and Cambridge are very friendly rivals, so to speak. I was telling you earlier that if you go to Cambridge, they never mention that other place. They always call it the other place. They never name it. They just say the other place, and it's a bit of friendly rivalry. We like a bit of friendly rivalry.
So the college time. So you've got, here's the college style. Eric, over in Easton-Maryland, do you have colleges nearby?
We have a couple. We have a Chesapeake Community College, which is only maybe about 10 minutes from downtown Easton, and then we're sort of situated between some other universities, Salisbury University in Salisbury, Maryland, which is about an hour, and then Washington College in Chestertown, which is about 40 minutes, which is a very well thought of school here as well.
Wow. And so you mentioned Chesapeake. So you are we went over that big bridge. Isn't that the Chesapeake? Yeah, I know. That needs to not happen.
That is the Chesapeake Bridge, yep.
No.
Yeah.
You guys know I'm scared of bridges, right? And I just gave it all kinds of wonderful language when I went over it. But it is beautiful where you are. I did. I'm scared. I'm not good at heights or bridges, but I do them anyway. And
you give me the giggles every time she gets on a bridge. I get the giggles.
Yeah, I'm very loud.
Wow.
No, I'm. But it's beautiful.
She goes into this thing where her knuckles turn white and she's gripping the steering wheel. I'm like, remember, you can turn and. Yeah.
You're not alone in that. They actually have they had a service where people who also were equally concerned, I will say, about going across the bridge, you could call up or you could actually get there and somebody would drive your car across the bridge while you huddled in the back seat and hitched until you got to the other side. Yep.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
That is cool. But it's beautiful. And I can, getting out to Easton, Maryland, let's get straight with that because we've got 3 Eastons here. What blew my mind was the water is not far away and you have all these marshlands and it seems to be very agricultural out there too. And yet your downtown is very quaint and charming and relaxed. And it is like a little village in a way, but an American village, even though with English roots, right?
Correct.
Yeah, cool. Beautiful. Now, going over to Laura in Easton, Pennsylvania, you've also got a beautiful downtown, also surrounded by water. You've got two rivers, right?
We do. We're at the forks of the Delaware River and the Lehigh River.
Oh, and
we have we have our own college rivalry, true. We have Lafayette College right here in Easton, and the other one for us is Lehigh University, which is just a few miles away in Bethlehem.
Wow.
There you go. Now, Glenn.
And the one thing that Easton itself has in England is it's got its own agricultural college, which is I think it's the biggest one in Norfolk anyway, definitely. And that has all types of agricultural departments. So you can go there to learn everything about farming, whether it is arable farming or animal farming, lots to do with horses and with sheep and pigs and cattle. And it also has all the arable things as well. So that's where you go if you want to learn to be a farmer. That's cool. Like I say, it's the biggest one in the area, because obviously Norfolk is a really, really big area when it comes to farming.
Oh, that's cool. And so at the same time, that ties back to America, right? So the American Eastons. And so Laura, one of the things that was very exciting to us, which we didn't get to experience because we had to travel out that day, which sucks because I still want to go to this, was you have the oldest operating outdoor farmers market, right? In
right, the
Easton,
oldest
Pennsylvania.
Continuously operating outdoor farmers market. That's right, and
wow.
It's been operating since 1752, which is a very long time ago from American standards.
Yeah,
and I'd like
brilliant.
to tell you too about why Easton, Pennsylvania is called Easton, and it's because Thomas Penn, who is the son of William Penn, who everybody knows as the man that Pennsylvania is named after. Thomas Penn was married to Juliana Fermor, And her father is the first Earl of Pomfrey, Thomas Fermor, and their family estate is called Easton-Neston in Northamptonshire. So he named the city after his wife's home estate, Easton, and our county is Northampton County.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
they originated from Northamptonshire.
Yes.
Oh wow.
So we don't have as quite an interesting story as why we're called Easton here, although there is some significance, and part of the story involves another town that I don't know if Glenn's going to appreciate this part of the story, but Easton, Maryland. Easton, Maryland was named because its location is east of St. Michael's, so it's the town east of St. Michael's, both Easton, East Town.
Yep.
But
Yep.
St. Michael's is a very famous town, particularly during the War of 1812, and it is known as the town that fooled the British. And
Okay.
the reason it was called that, which is pretty hysterical, I think, is that when they were alerted that the British were on their way to attack, the residents of St. Michael's took all the lanterns and put them up in the tops of the trees so that the British would think that the town was sitting on a hill. And they aimed all their guns up towards the top of the trees, and they shot over the town instead of into the town, and it saved the town.
Wow, that's a cool story.
That's
Wow,
good.
Is it true?
Yeah, it is true.
Wow. How
So,
about that?
Glenn, all the names, so the names are having different. I thought it was going to be some dude called Easton, and then, everything is, it's like Springfield is everywhere, right? Throughout the country, and everyone, it does connect back to Abraham Lincoln a lot of times, but what's going on with the name Easton in England? Do you know who started it, or is it because it was, East Anglia?
No, it's because it was the town on the east of the bigger village next door. So it was, because generally speaking in England you have a sort of a bigger village, and then you have other villages around it that either go to it for the market or something like that. So Easton was basically an east settlement. So that's just a name on the calendar on the compass. So it's just on the east of the neighbouring village, which was slightly bigger at the time. So it's a pretty simple name. That's why there's quite a few places called Easton in England, because it just means the east town. It's like Norton. Norton is the north town, and Southampton is the south part, So lots of place names are about where they are positioned, and Easton is one of these names.
So also looking, so you've got the agricultural connection. Obviously you guys, the farming in Easton-England, and then also the farmers market in Easton-Pennsylvania, and you've got wineries out there too, Laura. That's the other thing we got to say. You got wine.
We do, yes.
That's important.
We do.
That's important. And then Eric, over in Easton, Maryland, I know you've got a lot of seafood going on because you're not far from the coast, but also you've got an Amish farmers market. I didn't know that would. I thought Pennsylvania for sure, but I didn't know that would stretch over into Maryland too.
Yeah, we have an Amish farmers market, and the people that run the market do actually come in from Pennsylvania every weekend. It's not an everyday thing, but they're here all year long, and it's an indoor market, so they're able to do that.
Oh, that's cool. Because both places that we've been to, I mean, they're idyllic. I mean, you just don't see it, like we were saying, I think before we started recording, that, when you think about the villages, England versus the American village of Easton and Maryland, Easton, Pennsylvania, Easton, Maryland, there's definitely a European feel to it, but it's not anything you would see if there was Easton, Arizona. Heck no, it's not going to look like that, man. It's going to be all like flat and spread out. This is different, and there is this quaint feel to it. But Glenn, England, you guys, you don't have as big of a population within a village that we would have in the States.
No, not at all. I mean, Easton in Norfolk is under 350 people. You know, so it is a small settlement. You know, in England, Easton is a reasonable sized village because the villages are often very, very small. I mean, the village I originate from probably has got about 150, 200 people in it. You know, and the village I live in at the moment has probably got 300 people, 350. You know, so they're reasonable sized villages for England. You know, to get a big population, you'd have to go to a town or even a city. I mean, we've only got one city in Norfolk, and that's Norwich. But the others are just villages and towns.
I don't know if we have anywhere in the States that only have like less than 100 people.
Oh, yeah, we do. We have a lot in the middle. Yeah, they do. And it's like you drive by and it's like this. Yeah, think about like even in Arizona, there's like little dicky-doo towns. Like you have maybe 5 people that live there, and that's it. And farming communities. We do. It's
I've just looked it up. The population of Norwich is 144,000.
Oh,
and that is that's our big city.
Yeah.
That is the biggest city in East Anglia.
Wow. So, Laura, for you over in Pennsylvania, in Easton, Pennsylvania, how many people do you think live in your area? Because you've got the whole valley too, but in Easton. Is she there? Laura? Laura went away. I don't know what happened to Laura. What?
She's counting everybody.
Uh-oh, she's counting. What about you?
Counting.
I know. Eric, what about you? I mean, because to me, Easton, Maryland seems pretty like this charming village. It really felt like that.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty spread out area because of the agriculture, but we are at 16,500 people here in Easton.
Oh, that's not bad. What are they farming out there? Because we really did see a lot of farms on our way, and I know we did an interview with a couple ladies who wrote the book Bread and Beauty, and it was about your whole region of it being like historic agricultural country, like really historic, and they talk about the canals, and I know there's things going. We barely scratched the surface of your area, but what are they growing and raising? It looked to me like a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it is a little bit of everything. We do have a lot of soy, corn, and wheat, and I think those are, and kale. Those are sort of the ones that I see the most of around here. And then there's a fair amount of a little bit of livestock and black sheep.
Black sheep.
Black sheep. Yeah, I've got a lot of them in my family tree.
I wasn't going to go there, Glenn.
We talked about trolls on the last show, Glenn.
I know.
Yeah.
We have trolls in our family, but they're not actually related. They're just, step family.
They're just trolls.
They're trolls. Don't start. Here we go. It's the troll family, But okay, I think we got Laura back. Laura, are you there?
I'm here. I don't know what happened.
Oh, I don't know either.
Fell off.
We're glad you're here. So, how many people live in Easton, Pennsylvania?
So, like most American cities, we are, a city and then surrounded by a bunch of townships. So in the city itself, it's just 23,000 people. But then if you look to the wider area, it's many, many more than that.
That's really small. And one of the things I want to bring up is the graveyard in Easton, Pennsylvania. I love that graveyard. That cemetery. Is it? that should be like if for cemetery hoppers or travelers.
Well, it actually is for. Yeah, definitely. People who are into that sort of thing know about Easton Cemetery. It really is. It's huge. It has sites going, way back, like to the beginning of the settlement of this area, and all kinds of interesting names.
I had a good time in there. I mean, we were running around. There was actors. There was like musicians. There were a lot of military people. I mean, and Glenn, a lot of connections back to England when we were there.
Yeah, there would be.
A ton. But I think the English connection over on Eric's side, when you look at Easton-Maryland, we didn't do any graveyards. Do you have a graveyard that we should be? Yeah, there is a graveyard. I remember seeing one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a few blocks down from me, and it's a pretty substantial one. But I haven't done much exploring through there, but and I have one gravestone on the property which nobody knows what that's for. But we are afraid. I'm afraid to move it.
No, don't move it.
I've heard bad things, and I've seen too many movies.
No,
and listen,
has it got any engraving on it?
There's some engraving on it. It's very, very worn. I've had a couple people who have come out and tried to do some rubbings and figure out what it is. We've gotten a couple of letters, but nothing of that we've really fully determined yet. So it's a big mystery. Oh, wow. It's one of the big mysteries of the century, I call it. So.
Ooh.
And listen, speaking of grave, I want to know more because you got to go to Eric for Halloween. Like we didn't get to go to Halloween, but we were there and he was all dressed up and it was fun. And Priscilla, our sock monkey, got out there with the Halloween costumes. But I want to touch base on each of your inns because this is something that Nancy and I really discovered on our tour. We document parks and public lands, and then wonderful folks like Glenn have sent us on these story missions, and it's turned into something else that we can't announce yet, but something really cool is happening. And it was the bed and breakfast that really, all the bed and breakfasts we stayed with over the last year, number one, know how to take care of their guests and keep everyone sanitized, or keep everything's sanitized. They're not going to douse you with hand spray when you walk in, but they're very sanitized and keep. If you're going to travel and be safe, bed and breakfast really take care that you're going to be in a socially distanced way. They move breakfast tables so you're not on top of each other. I mean, it's just they really go to the nth to make sure everything happens. And it's a small business, something we should all support when we travel. And so as we slowly emerge out of COVID, which is going to take a lot of time, even once everyone's had their vaccines, it's going to take time. I encourage you to do the bed and breakfast, but what really got to Nancy and I were all these stories of entrepreneurism of these people that, built the homes, these historic places. Some were natural, destinations. Everybody had a different story, and it was these stories that changed us around a little bit. And you'll see a book coming out this spring that we're doing of all the bed and breakfast, over 25 bed and breakfasts in a year or something crazy we did. And and you'll hear the interviews of everyone, see photos, and hear these stories because you're not going to believe the stories you hear. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. So I want Eric and also Laura to give us a little background of their inns because some of it may tie back to England. You never know. So, Eric, why don't you start with the Hummingbird Inn? Because, I mean, this is, it's Victorian, my gosh.
Yeah, so the inn was originally built in 1887, and where we're located is just in the historic district of downtown Easton, and the block that we're on back in the 1800s was known as Silk Stocking Row.
Oh, hello.
When I first heard that, I got a little concerned about, but we'll do because it's not that kind of inn, Glenn.
Oh, okay.
He won't give you Bellinis in the morning, though.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, but actually back then, silk was so expensive that silk, if you could afford silk stockings, it denoted great wealth. So this was where some of the bigger homes were all located, and the gentleman that owned most of the block here was one of the originators of the big cannery companies here, which was a big thing, obviously, back then. And he had 2 daughters, and he decided he was going to build homes for each of his daughters, and down at the other end of the block. So not on top of them, but still close enough. And this house is the one remaining house of one of his daughters. And what was special about this house was not only because of the traditional Victorian style and the turret and everything else, but this house had a double horse carriage house, cool. And it also had the first outdoor kitchen and first indoor kitchen when kitchens started to move indoors. And they and then over the years, the house was continually transferred from family member to family member, and there was a doctor who lived here for quite some time, and he was well known in the town, and I guess it was his wife, made a soup called terrapin soup, which is a very famous traditional Maryland soup here, which is like a turtle soup. And that was sort of their claim to fame, and people would come around to get terrapin soup from the house, as well as come and see the doctor. So that's pretty much the history of the house back then. It's obviously gone through a lot of transformations. An unfortunate little incident with a fire in 2004, which resulted in a full restoration of the house and upgrades and things, which has really made it a benefit for the in-guests. But it's still the original foundation, original structure. 80% of the house is still original. That's the infrastructure and things have changed. So that's kind of the history of the house here.
And I think what's so cool, you've taken the historic side, and then you've really played to, made it like all the rooms are names of the surrounding communities, and so it's really historic. And then at the same time, you have that one room that's completely contemporary. So you've totally done like what people don't do in a bed and breakfast, which is cool. And you also do weddings and events out in the garden, which is beautiful. But do you know the name of the person who built it originally, like the actual initial family there, the soup people? Leave the turtles alone.
Had you not asked me, I would have told you. But now that you've asked me, I've completely forgotten what his name is.
Oh well.
This is what happens when you get old. So.
Oh, I know all about it. It's happening. It's all the Bellini. No. Now, Laura, yours is named after the college, right? The Lafayette Inn over in Easton-Pennsylvania. But when you think about the history of your inn, what you've got how many rooms? 18?
We have 18 rooms. Yes, so we're quite large for a bed and breakfast. The architecture is Georgian. So it's referred to as a Georgian mansion, and it was built in 1895. Wow. And it's similar to what Eric was describing. It was a family farm. The Wagner family had this very large farm, and he decided to divvy it up and give each daughter space. And Elizabeth Wagner Leary built what is now the Lafayette Inn.
So this is a woman. This is a woman, though. This is what's cool.
Yes, right? So isn't that interesting? And she never lived there. She built it as an investment property and rented it out right away to someone. So kind of an interesting story. And then it has, been through a lot, as a house will, over a couple hundred years. It was an apartment building for a while. It was sold at a sheriff's sale during the Depression. It was a fraternity house for Lafayette College, and you can imagine that might be hard on a house. And it ended up being abandoned for a while, and then somebody saved it from ruin, and it got turned into an inn in 1986.
Wow,
that's interesting because my house, was turned into an inn in 1987.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I just want to point out that the name Lafayette comes from Gilbert de Motier, the Marquis de Lafayette. His real name was
Good
Marie
pronunciation,
Joseph
Nancy.
Paul Yves Roux Gilbert de Motier, and he fought in the American Revolutionary War.
Right.
How about that? And
he
then
was Washington's right-hand man.
Yeah, and then he went on to fight in the French Revolutionary War. So I guess he was just like, free the people. Come on, dude.
We've got a good statue of him at the college, too, that we saw the first time we got there. We went walking around and saw that. I was like, wow, look at this dude, you know.
Yeah, and look at him, man. He's cool.
Wow. But that's kind of interesting that he went on both sides, you know. But Glenn, when you look at these historic buildings, come on, there's got to be like clues in the wallpaper, don't you think, Glenn? When you go into historic buildings, do you start wanting to pick behind the walls and
Sometimes there are so many clues on the outside of a building as well as on the inside. But you see, for us, it's much more visible, I suppose, because we've got such a long history, and you know, things have been changed over the years, and I'm talking centuries. For us, I mean, one of the bed and breakfasts that I use regularly was built. Now, I believe, off the top of my head, it was originally built in 1349.
Whoa!
You know, we're talking a long while ago. It was built as a medieval college for priests.
Wow!
Some parts of it you can actually see the old medieval windows in the wall and things like that. But what I really, really, really want to point out to your listeners is about using independent bed and breakfasts, because if you want to visit an area and learn about an area, you really have got to stay in a locally owned house. Because if you go and stay in a chain hotel, the staff are not going to be interested in doing anything special. If you stay in a privately owned bed and breakfast, the owners are the people who are going to be serving you breakfast, and they are going to be passionate about where they live, and they're going to be able to tell you all the little things that you want to know about where to visit, what the best place is to go and have a pint in the local pub. They're going to be able to tell you where you can go and buy proper local souvenirs. They're going to want to share their locality with you, and you don't get that in a big hotel. You know, you don't get it. And also, the best thing I find about staying in a bed and breakfast, and I always use independent bed and breakfast wherever I go, and I always find that I get what I call proper food, I get proper service, and I get proper local knowledge, because the people have lived here for years, and they want me to enjoy my stay. And you don't get that in what I call a spit and cardboard hotel. You know, one where you can hear what the neighbours next door are talking about. Well, you know, you don't get that in a bed and breakfast.
Eric and Laura, we're not paying Glenn to say all this, but he's absolutely right on our travels.
So funny.
We kind of steered away from bed and breakfast for a while because, you know, of our work and how we have to do things. But the bed and breakfast past year taught us you can have actually better internet a lot of times. And I'm not going to, we use hotels when we need to too, so I'm not going to knock them, but because they do serve a purpose. But the Lafayette, you have a lot of business people too that come in, because this is the headquarters for Crayola. I mean, we can go color. I think all of us need to do color, a night of wine and color in, you know. But
that sounds good.
You guys are set up for it. There's internet. I mean, we were able to do radio shows, like the radio shows from the Turret at Eric's at the Hummingbird Inn. There's, so everything has changed, and we always think that it's going to be, this is bed and breakfasts are. I remember, Eric, while we were there, you had younger people in for their very first bed and breakfast day, and I think this is the bed and breakfast. The typical bed and breakfast has changed in more open to all ages, and the experience is different compared to what it used to be.
You're absolutely right. And one of my goals has been to try to drive that and change that sort of demographic in terms of the people that normally would go to a bed and breakfast. And we've done things to help make that happen, whether that's holding more different types of events here that are public events and community events and things, and things that are a little more unique to not something you'd expect to have at a bed and breakfast. We have, eliminated minimum night stays except for holidays and special weekends, because we found that a lot of younger people just couldn't really do the 2 nights, or especially couples that have a baby and they can get somebody to, mom and grandma and grandpa will do the baby 1 night, but not 2. And this has really opened it up, and through word of mouth and them having that experience and going back and talking to their friends, it has significantly made an impact here for certain in terms of the people that are coming to the inn, and many of them are first time B&Bers. And I think there was a stigma. I think there was sort of a reputation of what a bed and breakfast was. It was grandma's house and tons of doilies and dusty and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't really.
We used to call them dust and doilies. You know?
Yeah. Call them what?
And
dust and doilies.
Dust and doilies, and seriously, that time has passed, and it's been passed for at least 15 years. So people, come on, get over it.
And also the inns are all keeping this history alive. I mean, that was to me the amazing thing, was all the history that was attached to these buildings, and that these buildings would go away and lose their stories and the lifeblood of someone who built it, like Lafayette Inn. Going over there in Pennsylvania, Easton, Pennsylvania, Laura, I mean, this is a woman's entrepreneur story that, historically speaking, she was pretty
right. And you're absolutely right. The building was absolutely saved by turning it into an inn, and there's, it could so easily have been torn down instead. And what a miracle it is.
Wow. And you are totally set up. I mean, it's not a hotel, but it's hotel-ish. It's like a boutique inn. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. It's kind of the best of both worlds. Right. You can be private if you need to be private, but you can meet new friends, can make new friends. And I like what Glenn said about proper food. We make everything here. There's no frozen, no Pop-Tarts in the morning. It's all good stuff.
Cookies.
There's cookies all day long.
There's cookies.
One of the ways that I always judge where I stay, and in England, we have an English breakfast, which is, sausages, bacon, egg, that sort of thing. The way that I judge a bed and breakfast is the sausages, because you can buy some really cheap, horrible frozen sausages that are about, I suppose if you call them in dollars, probably about 10 cents each. You can get them really cheap, but you can also buy them. You can buy them from the local butcher, and yes, they're going to be a lot more expensive. But the local butcher puts in meat. He doesn't put in, sawdust. He puts meat in it. And that is what I judge a bed and breakfast on, is the quality of their sausages in the morning.
Wow. Well, Glenn,
pretty basic.
Glenn, with you on the tours, I mean, you really work with, I know you're also part of Buy Local Norfolk, Norfolk Local, but it's really about everyone doing business locally. And I think as visitors now, and I think it doesn't matter the generation, younger generation too, we want bed and breakfast. I'm not younger generation anymore, apparently. I'm middle. But whatever. I know, it's weird. Like when you hit middle age, so does your middle thing happen in your belly. But it just is. It's like, here, I got my own layer of pork fat for you. Here. But anyway, so
your stomach gets bigger, so you can't see your weight on the scale when you stand on it.
Exactly. Listen, the food is fantastic, and it is about when you go and stay in a bed and breakfast, it becomes this local experience, and they recommend restaurants, and galleries and museums. Like they find out what do you want to see? What is your interest? And I think that's so amazing. Glenn, that is exactly, I know England's not quite open yet, and eventually it will be, and it's not going to be that long. And people are planning, but that's something you do as a tour guide is you are not like a run-of-the-mill, here's your packages, buy 1, 2, or 3. It is what you do, exactly what bed and breakfast do. Find out what are your interests and tailor-make it accordingly.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? That is what it's all about. If you actually know your customers and do what they want, then they're gonna enjoy themselves a lot more, and then they're gonna tell other people.
Exactly.
So it's common sense, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to thank each
along those lines. One of the things that has really been interesting is that due to sort of the one of the side benefits of this unfortunate pandemic is that we have found that we're getting a lot more local people coming and staying now in our B&B, and not necessarily local to Easton, but surrounding areas, because we're right outside of D.C. and Annapolis and Baltimore, and we're getting a huge number of people from these cities who never traveled this close. They always, and they're discovering their own, what's now in their own backyard, and realizing that you don't have to get on a plane, and in less than 2 hours you can have an incredibly unique experience and learn about, all sorts of history and everything else, just by doing what you're talking about, which is staying local, staying in a small place, and talking to people that can introduce you to something that you never would have experienced before.
That's so true. That's what Lisa and I found. That's why we're going in circles across America.
I know, America. Laura, that's the same for you. I mean, you've got families that come back because of their family being, their children being in the college and things, right? So they want things. So you're like home base. You're like the mama ship for all the families.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, she sent us all over the place. She was like, no, here, you've got this much time. And I can't believe how much we did pack in, except for we really spent a lot of time in that cemetery. I can't, that was so I'm still like blown away. I want to do like a video of, gravestones, and I don't know if it's interesting to me, it's because these are, graveyards to me, I think we talked about that with you, Laura, is like we need to consider them parks because master gardeners keep these graveyards beautified. And I know the National Park Service actually got involved with your graveyard, your cemetery, after some weather events happened years ago, and they helped restore it. But it's something they hardly get funding like parks do, and like parks battle. They're battling the same things parks battle, I should say. And so when you see these places, they're peaceful. There's wildlife, is out there. There's birds, there's squirrels, there's all kinds because it's quiet. But it was really amazing. And listen, your streets are like England too, like little village streets. I felt like we're in mini San Francisco. I'm just driving around, and then all of a sudden the cemetery. It was fascinating.
It's beautiful.
It was, and then we ended up in New Jersey by accident. But that's okay. I was like, I've never been to New Jersey. Hello. And turned around, came back. But really amazing places. Before each of you go, which we really want to thank you for joining us. And this is so cool, 3 Eastons on one show. Spring is coming. Today, we're recording on the first day of March, which, by the time this airs, which is going to air soon, and it will be featured in our Parks and Travel magazine for spring. I want to look at what spring is like in each of your regions. So, Glenn, let's start with you in Easton-England. What can you expect in, Norwich, Norfolk, for spring? What does it look like?
Spring here is obviously very green. We are now getting all the wildflowers coming out, so last week, I was driving over to my parents because I do their shopping because obviously they don't go out. So I do their shopping, and my dad, when he was working, always used to pick the first primroses and take them to my mum in his dinner box at the end of the day, And So when I was driving over there, I actually saw some primroses growing in the hedgerows. So I stopped and picked a little bunch of primroses for my mum. And, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing all the wildflowers coming out and all the birds. The birds are going mad at the moment. The thing we're seeing at the moment is the male birds trying to get their territory. So that's really interesting. And tonight, when we took Erin home to her mum and dad's after babysitting all day, we saw a beautiful owl was then doing a bit of hunting in the meadow beside where they live. So we're getting lots and lots of wildlife, which is lovely to see.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And Laura, over in Easton, Pennsylvania, you shared photos with us about the Lafayette Inn. Those beautiful trees outside, are they starting to bloom yet, or is that coming in the next month? It looks really beautiful in spring.
Yeah, the trees are not quite coming yet. We have our crocus are starting to come up, and they cover the entire yard by the time they're done. So that's one of our favorite couple weeks of the year. And then we have a lot of daffodils and tulips and things. And then the magnolia and the dogwood trees will be a little bit behind that and make the whole neighborhood beautiful.
Oh, that is awesome. I want to go on the Carl Sterner Arts Trail is something we did when we went with you. And I would love, we were there in the fall. It was beautiful. And I really want to go there in the spring. It's got to be absolutely beautiful at the spring. And you've got to talk about silk. By the way, Eric, you were talking about silk. She's got the silk factory in her backyard. Like, seriously.
We do have the Simon Silk Mill, yes.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
It's a very, very historic silk mill area that's now turned into a great apartments and shops and restaurants and things. Fabulous.
It's amazing. It really is. And she's got crayons. Like, seriously, who doesn't want crayons?
That's right.
We all need that. We all need that.
Crayons.
I know. Eric, for you over in, and everyone, LafayetteInn.com. Let me give Glenn's website out. It's norfolk-tours.co.uk. And then over at Hummingbird Inn in Easton-Maryland, you can go to hummingbirdinneaston.com. What's happening for spring in your neck of the woods? Because you got a garden too.
We're very similar to what Laura's described in Pennsylvania. Maybe a little bit earlier, just because we're a little bit more tempered. Gets a little warmer here first around the water and stuff, but. We definitely have all the flowers are starting to root up and coming through, and so that's exciting. Our big kickoff here, like the big first sign of spring on the property here, is we have an incredibly old weeping cherry tree that is sort of the first sign of spring is here. When it first blooms, it's this huge canopy of pink. And it lights up the whole backyard, and it's really gorgeous next to the magnolia. And hopefully it will be on time because I've got a wedding scheduled to be under that. So if nature cooperates, everything will go well. I have a little control over that. So
wow,
nice.
I can, and you've got the water. The Wildlife Refuge. I'm going to say Blackwater. Am I saying it right?
Blackwater Nature Reserve. Yep. Oh. And I had guests were there just yesterday, and all the eagles are nesting. So this is their time. So there's lots and lots of eagles and herons there. So you get to see them all nesting, and then they'll have the little babies.
Oh, I love that. I know. I want to go back to the Wildlife Refuge. That was so. I did not expect what we saw. We saw all kinds of herons and it's amazing. So cool. I just was I didn't know Maryland had marshes, and we went to Delaware. I think right after you, and we saw swans. Swans. There's swans out there. What are you? We saw swans in Texas too. What are you doing out there? But you're there, and we love it. One thing, talking about weddings, Laura. Before you guys go, do you do weddings or special events at the Lafayette Inn?
We do small weddings, elopement type weddings, and we do business meetings, and we do baby showers. Yes, all kinds of fun things.
Okay, that's good to know, because that's another thing that bed and breakfasts have really opened up to, especially during COVID times, of doing these smaller weddings, smaller events, the garden parties, and doing Zoom weddings and all of that. So really important for people to know. Exactly. We want to thank each of you for joining us. Thank you so much. This is so cool. I just wish we were all in person. It would be even more fun, because I know scones and bellinis would be happening, and it would be even cool. Yeah. But really, you guys all rock in person. And one day we'll get to meet Glenn in person, and he's been on our show for years. I just wish it was in person, because we want to meet Glenn.
Yeah, one day.
It'll happen. It'll happen. And then you're going to have to try and make us behave, and it won't happen. But
no, that's not going to happen, is it?
No, never. But everyone, again, watch out for the spring issue of Parks and Travel magazine. If you go to nationalparktraveling.com, sign up for our newsletter, you'll get it in your email box. We send newsletters out with each publication. And we're going to close with a song called 3 Cars. Since we did 3 Eastons, we're going to do 3 Cars. And this is from a band, a great friends over in England called Sandtimer. And you can keep up with them at sandtimermusic.bandcamp.com. So here it is, 3 Cars. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
you guys take care.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
3 beautiful cars parked side by side in his drive, number plates with his name, and he's running on empty all the same. He is working so hard that when he's home he cannot really hear what his children say. He can't see his own wife's face. Did he sell his soul so he could buy it back somewhere down the track? How could he delude himself that it works like that? Did he see a wholesome empty space and fill it up with cash? Warn him, I guess, warn him. Oh yes, oh yes. And watched it fade. It carried me places and kept me alive, and I sighed as he raced down that dappled summer evening, death trap drive. Now more to life than what we own, but never have I seen such a clean